Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Ecommerce Lab by Ecomcy, the place for everything related to Amazon, FBA, private label, and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, your host, founder, and CEO of Ecomcy. And today we'll bring you another episode where we're going to be talking about something very interesting, which is basically about how to launch a successful Kickstarter campaign without all the headaches, which is actually the slogan of the company of my friend here, LaunchBoom, and my friend is Will Ford, which is actually the president and the co-founder of LaunchBoom, where they specialize on helping entrepreneurs like yourself to basically kickstart their career with a crowdfunding, which is a very interesting topic that a lot of people talk about, but actually a lot of people don't know how to do it. And that's going to be basically today's episode, talking about all the tips, all the mistakes to avoid, and so on. So before we jump into that, I want to actually first start with introducing you, Will. So it's a pleasure to have you here on the show today. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure for me. After I met you around, a couple of weeks back and learn about what you do with your company, LaunchBoom, I was, very impressed. And I think it's such a niche thing. And at the same time, something that can change the so many businesses because this option is so useful for all those entrepreneurs that have an amazing idea, but at the same time, they're lacking, that they're funding that community to actually bring that product and brand to life. And it's gonna be an interesting episode today, talking about all the things you need to consider to actually even start a crowdfunding campaign for your brand and so on. So very excited to have you here.
Yeah, me too. It's great to be here, and I love what you guys are doing with Ecomcy. I think we're going to be doing a lot more business together as well this year, just
For
because so
sure.
many of our clients, once we get them through crowdfunding, a lot
Yeah.
of them they want to go on and scale. How do you do
Yeah.
that? Well, most of our clients use Shopify e-commerce to do
Yeah.
that. So I think there could be a lot of synergy with what we're both doing. Again, really nice to meet you a few weeks ago, and excited to be here today and just share my experience in crowdfunding with all of
Yeah.
your listeners and audience today. I am the president and co-founder here at LaunchBoom. We started the company here in San Diego, California, uh,
Nice.
back in 2015. And before 2015, I was actually running my own e-commerce business. Uh,
Okay.
Prior to starting LaunchBoom, I started a company called Petbox, uh,
Mm,
and it was a basically a subscription e-commerce type business model where I would ship out boxes of toys and treats to pet owners all over America. Every
interesting.
month, it was a monthly subscription model, and at the time when I was running that business and scaling that business, this was back when influencers were still, still pretty early in that game. So I went out to 1,000 pet influencers, pet bloggers, any celebrity pets. I know that sounds crazy, but they're out there that have millions of followers. And I'd say, hey, I'm Will Ford. I'm going to send you a free box every month with the best premium pet products out there. All I want you to do is one or two posts. Uh, Please add a link to my website and don't say anything negative, and I'll keep your box. And I ended up getting 1,000 of those pet influencers under my umbrella at Petbox, and I went from 1,000 to 53,000 monthly subscribers within 12
Wow.
months. It was
Crazy.
honestly, it was rapid growth. I'd never been through that type of hyper growth ever before in my career. And 2 years after I started Petbox in 2013. In early 2015, I was acquired, and we were one of the fastest growing companies in that pet industry at the time. And the reason I started LaunchBoom was right as soon as I exited Petbox, I actually met a young student at University of California, San Diego, and he somehow got a meeting with me, and he was like, "Hey, Will, I'm launching this Kickstarter campaign." And I'm like,
Mm,
at the time, I'm like, what's Kickstarter? And he's like, well, basically, I can pre-sell my product to people all over the world. I can take their money up front before I
mhm.
place my manufacturing. And then I have all the time in the world to really nail that down so I can deliver a great experience to all the backers from Kickstarter. And that was the first time I ever knew that there was an option to take a consumer product, introduce it to the world, and actually pre-sell that product before you've even manufactured it. All you
Yeah.
really need is a good enough prototype to photograph. and video so that you can actually get people excited enough to buy it or pre-buy it on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So that young student asked me to help him raise $30,000. And I asked him what the money was for. And he said he wanted to put it into advertising. He wanted to do Facebook and Instagram advertising, build his own community around that product before he went to Kickstarter. And so I was very intrigued. So I joined him as an advisor. I helped him raise the $30,000 he was looking for. And then I actually went through his second launch on Kickstarter with him. And that $30,000 in advertising ended up generating over $750,000 in pre-sales on Kickstarter. And that's kind of when the light bulb went off for me. I was like, wait a minute, I've never seen a return on ad spend that great and in such a short amount of time, because we did that in only 30 days. Yeah. And so that's kind of when I started doing my research, and I was looking in, the world of crowdfunding. I was looking for an agency like LaunchBoom to help me launch future projects and future products. And when I was doing my research, there was nothing available. There were no agencies that were serving that early stage entrepreneur or startup with that really cool product idea. So I did a little more research and I realized that Kickstarter and Indiegogo were growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, they were like doubling growth year in, year out since they opened their doors in 2008, 2009. And I was crazy enough, Vincenzo, to make a bet. I made a bet that this wasn't just a fad, that this would be here 10 years later. And it's still here. It's never been better than ever in the history that I've been involved. And what's so exciting about, creating LaunchBoom is that I actually get to help entrepreneurs all over the world now take their ideas, turn them into successful businesses. And I'm doing this hundreds of times a year. Wow. So every year we're launching hundreds of products here at LaunchBoom. We were the first full service agency. So the idea was in the beginning, hey, how can we make this easy on the entrepreneur? And how can we more or less guarantee a successful outcome? And so in the early years, I came in as like their agency partner and I do all the work for them. It was kind of a white glove service where I'd figure out the messaging, the positioning. Then I'd figure out, okay, how can we maximize that pre-launch community so we can have these LaunchBoom effects and make sure everyone gets funded within that first hour after turning on the campaign on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. So we do launch on both platforms today, on Kickstarter, on Indiegogo, and both platforms are great for different types of product categories. And I'll get to that a little later. But what's so cool about what we've built over here at LaunchBoom is we've really focused more on the preparation, the pre-launch. How can we get a community engaged, excited about a new product before we go to Kickstarter or Indiegogo? And then the idea is we never set a $1 million campaign goal. So you guys, the first rule with Kickstarter and Indiegogo is you want to set a campaign goal that you know you can hit. Because if you don't get the campaign funded and hit that goal, the project is a failure. It doesn't get funded. So what we do is we manipulate that funding goal at LaunchBoom. So what we do is once we get through that pre-launch process and we build thousands of interested potential consumers for any type of product that we're launching, what we'll do is we'll strategically set the campaign goal at a number we know we can hit with the first email blast that we send out the minute we turn on that campaign. So a lot of our funding goals are usually anywhere from like 10 to 50,000 US. And the idea is when you turn that on, we get that entire campaign funded on average in 15 minutes.
Wow. Basically.
And now, Vincenzo, when that happens, it's what I call the LaunchBoom effect. When Kickstarter or Indiegogo sees a campaign launch and they see it get funded within minutes, they get excited about it. They see that it's popular, especially when they see outside traffic coming into their platform and converting really, really well. They start to promote it internally. They'll start to feature it in their newsletters. They'll start to give us top placement on their platform. And what this does is it opens up this massive organic reach to tens of millions of backers that are there looking for really cool products. And the only reason these platforms perform so well is because these people continue to come back because they're looking for super cool products. They want to get a discount off retail, and they want to be the first ones to get that product in their hands once it's produced. And so that's why it worked super well when we first started LaunchBoom in 2015. And that's why it's working even better today, because those organic audiences and communities have grown so much. I mean, today there's tens of millions of organic backers that are looking for awesome products every day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what's so cool about LaunchBoom is that we can not only introduce a product to the United States, but we can introduce new products to the entire world. Anyone that has access to Kickstarter and Indiegogo can actually purchase these products. And if we drive a big enough sale, Vincenzo, with economies of scale and manufacturing, you can usually place a much larger volume order, which will actually lower your cost per unit and make it
Yes.
easier for me to deliver a much greater margin on every unit we move through the system for all my clients. So my clients love us because we help them maximize their crowdfunding outcome on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And if we can help them raise a lot more money than what they need, well, now they can actually place even larger volume orders because they've got the capital now to make those payments to manufacturers, and they don't have to have all that stress and fear. Am I ordering too much? Am I not going to be able to move my product? That's not a worry anymore with crowdfunding. And that's honestly, as an entrepreneur, why I love what we do at LaunchBoom so much, because it really reduces the risk and time for anyone out there with a really cool product idea to launch on Kickstarter or Indiegogo and raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. And then now they have all the money they need to produce, deliver, and then move into Ecomcy, right? And now
That's right.
now they give your team the budgets they need to really scale advertising and ramp up sales and scale through e-commerce. So
Wow.
You can
I
tell
love it.
you can tell I get
Yeah, I can see. I mean, it's definitely such an interesting world. And first of all, thank you for sharing all that background, your stories. It's such an interesting, journey to date about everything you've been going through, and the fact that you even live the whole thing yourself, and that's how you gain the idea of doing the agency and LaunchBoom. It's amazing. I think what I love about this approach, and something you always kept going back, is actually the community that you build. Right? It's not only about the money. It's actually those thriving fans that you actually build before the product even hit the market, right? Which actually is something that brings me to my first question, and I bet you get this question all the time, which is people asking all the time, like, what is the main difference between doing funding from a platform such as Indiegogo or Kickstarter, or just getting like working capital and doing yourself? And I bet your answer is going to be this, but just to do a quick summary so you can jump in and give us some insight, is because I guess you build that a community, right? Which with other funding solutions, just the money and that's it, right?
Yeah, so that's part of it. So the other part of it is I'm a serial entrepreneur. So before LaunchBoom, before Petbox, I'd also started other companies prior to that.
Okay.
And I've also raised a lot of money. I've raised millions of dollars, Vincenzo, for different ventures that I've started, right? And when I was first raising money for my early ventures, I didn't know how to raise money, right? So the biggest mistake I made was I would place a valuation on my company that was much lower than it should have been. And so I diluted myself hugely out of huge opportunities that I created because I took money too early before I validated my idea and was able to scale it. And so another reason I love crowdfunding, specifically Kickstarter and Indiegogo, is because anyone out there that has a really cool consumer product company, as long as it's hardware, tangible, physical, it can be apparel, it can be tech, it can be IoT, it can be a variety of different categories. I mean, we work in probably 100 different categories, if not more, with the different type of products that we launch. But when it comes to consumer, physical, tangibles, the best way to launch any type of new business, guys, don't raise capital from investors. Don't do that to start. I want you to bootstrap. I want you to use your credit cards if you believe in your idea. And the reason I say that is because you can now, with a small amount of money, literally like $10,000, $20,000, you can take your product idea into Kickstarter or Indiegogo. You can pre-sell thousands of units to people all around the world, get their money up front, and now you've got the capital you need to not only manufacture and deliver, but you've done the hardest part. You validated that there is demand.
Proof of concept,
right? So now the idea is, through our pre-launch efforts and the crowdfunding opportunity, we're able to build this massive community around these new product launches. Then we're able to raise the capital. We're not diluting ourselves, right? We're not selling any equity. We're just pre-selling product. And then once you take that from crowdfunding and you move over, let's just say to your team, Vincenzo, over at
Yeah.
Ecomcy, well, now you go raise money. And what's so cool about crowdfunding is I haven't even talked about this yet, but there's other types of crowdfunding too, Vincenzo. There's
Okay.
equity crowdfunding. And
Okay.
here in America, equity crowdfunding is huge right now. So
Mm-hmm.
what I always coach my clients on is take your product idea, bootstrap it.
Yeah.
It might be painful, but self-fund it as long as you can, at least through that validation piece on Kickstarter, Indiegogo. Because
Yeah.
once you do that, now you actually can validate and justify a much higher valuation on your company. And now you can
Mm-hmm.
actually take that raise over to the equity crowdfunding platforms. Here in America, there are many, but the top ones are WeFunder, Start Engine.
I see.
There's Dalmore. There's a lot of great e-commerce platforms out there. Crowdfunding platforms out there on the equity side, where
Yeah.
now you can take that deal and you can now go raise capital, and you can
Mm,
actually market to the backers from Kickstarter. You can market to the backers from Indiegogo. So now your consumer now becomes your investor with the equity
mm-hmm.
crowdfunding piece. And now on the equity crowdfunding piece, the entrepreneur, it's their best friend because they can get a much higher valuation.
That's
They
right.
can raise much more working capital to now accelerate their growth, right?
Yeah.
And leave their competitors in their dust.
Yeah.
And the beauty of the equity crowdfunding platforms is that today I will never raise money from a venture capitalist ever again
Yeah.
because they don't offer as much value as the equity crowdfunding platforms. And they want to take too much equity and they want to give
Yeah.
you as little cash as possible.
I know.
So instead of like having to work for the venture capitalist, I'd rather continue to work for myself as an entrepreneur and take my
Mm-hmm.
awesome product launch that successfully made it through Kickstarter or Indiegogo. And then I'm going to go do my own raise on the equity crowdfunding platforms. I'm going to get a much higher valuation and I'm going to get more cash so I can go even harder against my idea
Yes.
and have a much bigger exit for myself personally. Right.
Yeah. It's an
So
amazing tip. Yeah.
yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
So I know I went kind of deep down that rabbit hole, but yeah, when it comes to crowdfunding, um, I love products. I love
Yeah.
consumer products. That's my passion, and that's why I've been working here at LaunchBoom for the last 9 years of my career, and this is something I've put more time and effort and energy into than any other business I've ever created.
Oh.
The why behind it, Vincenzo, is because it's the most rewarding experience I've ever had. Literally, like I have worked with dozens of entrepreneurs worldwide
Yeah.
that were literally normal people working a 9 to 5
Yeah.
job, and they had a really good idea, and they had the courage to take that idea through my LaunchBoom system into Kickstarter, into Indiegogo, and I've seen dozens of my clients go from product idea into a real successful business and actually exit for hundreds of millions of dollars.
Crazy. Wow.
And so what makes it so rewarding for me is to really help these great people that have awesome ideas actually take that product to life, make it a real successful business, and then make their dreams come true by making more money
Yeah.
than they ever could have working their day jobs, the 9 to 5
Yeah.
jobs.
Of
And
course.
my favorite part, Vincenzo, is when I can help my clients take those product ideas, make them real businesses, and then get them to a point where they can quit their day job. I love
Yeah.
it when I can help people learn to fish instead
Yeah.
of, fishing for
Giving the
something,
fish. Yeah. Of
right?
course. Love it. Love it. Yeah. I think is I'm totally on board with all the ideas. And I think just to summarize that initial point, like I see that mistake so many times, especially when I talk to founders. They always say, "Oh, I wouldn't have given away so much equity at the beginning just because of I need this money." And I think that's a mindset thing. A lot of people think that to start business they didn't need this funding from a venture capital or a bank or whatever. They don't think they can bootstrap it. But yes, I totally on board that there is solutions such as Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and using agencies such as LaunchBoom can be much more a bigger win in the long term, which actually another question that came to my mind, and this actually is also something I'm gonna learn from you today, is I get this question a lot as well, which is what is the main difference between all these platforms? Because there are multiple platforms, and I know you specialize on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. And I wanted to ask you if maybe you can give us some insights about what are maybe some of the key difference between Indiegogo and Kickstarter,
Yeah.
or and if so, what are maybe some of the main difference also on the strategy side of things? Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, before I answer the question, what's difference between Kickstarter and Indiegogo?
Yeah.
What I want to tell everyone about is why, no matter what platform you choose, you're going to have success if you work with my team. So basically, here at LaunchBoom, we pioneered a concept called the reservation funnel.
Okay.
So when we first started launching these crowdfunding campaigns on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, we would do Facebook or Instagram advertising. We would drive that traffic to
Hmm.
a lead funnel and would try to get people to submit their email before the launch. That way we
Okay.
could remarket to them and convert them when we would launch.
Hmm.
Years ago, we upgraded that. So instead of just collecting the email, when anyone clicks on an Instagram or Facebook ad, we redirect them to a reservation funnel. And this is a proprietary system that we've developed where now when you drive that traffic into the reservation funnel, what we do is we say, hey, we're launching soon on Kickstarter or Indiegogo.
I see.
The first 1,000 backers are going to get a lower price and early delivery before everyone else. If you want the best deal today, before we launch on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, all you have to do is place a $1 money back guarantee deposit, and we're going to guarantee you the best deal now before we go live. So,
Nice.
what we do is we actually focus on building the reservation funnel for every campaign we manage now. Because, for
Nice.
example, if I have $1,000 reservations before your launch, Vincenzo, I know that 30 to 40%, if not more, are going to become backers, right?
Okay.
So to use simple math, if I know that my average order is going to be $100, right?
Hmm.
And if I know that I can get, if I have $1,000 reservations before the launch, right? I know that I'm going to have 300 minimum conservative backers convert from my reservation funnel.
That's right.
So I'm going to set that campaign goal at the number. I'll usually make that even more conservative. I might make that campaign goal $20,000.
Okay.
And then when we turn on the campaign, we're going to crush that goal within the first 15 minutes with that first email that goes to that reservation funnel. So that
Nice.
reservation funnel system is the why behind our pre-launch efforts and community building. And that is why we're able to have these massive campaigns on Kickstarter and Indiegogo.
I see. And you
Now,
keep creating goals, I guess, right? After that first goal, you can create a second one and so on, right?
exactly. And so before I get to that, so to answer your question, when we take our clients through our pre-launch reservation funnel
Hmm.
build system, while we're doing that, we'll actually make introductions to both our friends at Kickstarter and Indiegogo to see
Okay.
who gets more excited about a specific deal. And
I
then
see.
based on the response from the platforms, that's usually how we'll advise our clients whether or not to launch on Kickstarter or Indiegogo.
I see.
Now, there is another way we advise our clients too. So there are certain categories on Kickstarter that outperform Indiegogo. So,
I
for
see.
example, one of the top categories on Kickstarter is, believe it or not, tabletop games. So the
Okay.
gaming vertical in Kickstarter, we have like the most million dollar
The
campaigns per
strongest community, you will say.
yeah,
Yeah.
gaming. Gaming is the strongest community on Kickstarter. Kickstarter is also really focused on supporting like creatives, artists.
I
So
see.
any type of creative type product or creative project that comes through our system, we'll usually direct it to Kickstarter because it's going to perform better. They've got a really strong community there.
Mm.
Now, for example, Indiegogo, usually when I see like really cool tech hardware innovation, I'll drive the tech hardware to Indiegogo because tech
Mm.
hardware does extremely well on Indiegogo. They've got a much stronger community there versus Kickstarter. So those are a few
I
examples of
see.
kind of how we direct our clients to Kickstarter versus Indiegogo and vice versa. But at the end of the day, all we care about is what our clients care about.
Of course.
What platform can we raise the most amount of money? And at the end of the day, that's usually how we advise our client.
Very good. Very good. And when it comes to preparing all these goals and everything when it comes to crowdfunding, I guess other things you might need to consider, and this also like a question, so you can give some advice on this, is basically all your costs when it comes to actually putting the product in production in the first place. Because I guess it's also kind of also a race against time, because if while the goal is getting hit, you also need to make sure you're working very hard on the back end to start the production run, having the prototypes ready and all of that. So how's usually that works? Like, will you have all that figure out before doing even the campaign, or just something you bootstrap while you actually hitting the goals? You see what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, no, Vincenzo, that's a really, really great question. And honestly,
Mm.
it's something that we start to think about as early as the pre-launch.
Okay.
So the reason for that is because we need to understand what the manufacturing costs are
Yeah.
before we go to Kickstarter Indiegogo. Because what I haven't talked about yet is some of the work we do during pre-launch. A lot of
Okay.
my clients, actually most of my clients, Vincenzo, come to me and they're like, "Hey, Will, I got this really cool product. I think I can sell it for $100. What do you
Yeah.
think?"
Yeah.
And I tell everyone the same thing. I have no idea. Well, let's test the market. And they go,
Mm.
"What do you mean?" And what's really cool about our reservation system is that you can actually do what's called split A/B testing. So we
Okay.
can create different lead offers based on market data, market research. What we'll do is we'll do that research before we create the price strategy. And we'll look
Okay.
at, okay, what makes your product unique and different and superior to all the other competitors in the landscape? And then what are those competitors selling their products for? And then we
Mm.
look at, okay, now what do we think we can justify selling yours for? And at the end of the day, we're trying to maximize the average order value per backer. So the way
Yeah.
we do that is we'll set up different reservation funnels when we start the micro testing portion of pre-launch.
Yeah.
And we might have a lead offer that has a product for 100. We might have a bundle pack for 300. And
I
then what
see.
we'll do is we'll actually start marketing those funnels to specific audiences that we think are going to be the ideal demographic. The advantage we have at LaunchBoom is we have over 7 million backers in our database. So the thousands of products that we've launched over like the last 10 years, we've retained a copy of all the backers. So we actually share access
Mm.
to our clients of those audiences. So once we understand what audiences they're targeting, let's just say they're launching a game on Kickstarter, we can
Yeah.
pull all the gamer backers from Kickstarter campaigns over the last 10 years, and we can
Nice.
actually leverage those audiences for targeting. So now we can put those lead offers in front of specific audiences that we know like games, for example, and we look at the data. So maybe one lead offer performs much better than the first one that we test, right?
I
That's
see.
going to be how we validate the pricing. So a lot of our clients come in super early. They don't know how to price their product. So we actually created a whole nother program, Vincenzo, called SourceBoom. And
Okay.
what's SourceBoom is led by an expert of manufacturers that we've worked with for the last 10 years. And when our clients come in, if they don't have any idea about manufacturing or sourcing, we get
Pricing
them,
and all
we
that.
get them
Yeah.
plugged into our SourceBoom team, and we actually help them figure out how to source the product, how to manufacture the product, and then we understand what the pricing is for different volume order units. So now we know what the cost is going to be from a legitimate manufacturer that can
Nice.
produce a great product, deliver a great experience to the backer, and we know that during pre-launch now. So now we're able to figure out, okay, now we know what the manufacturing cost is. So now let's do the price testing. Let's figure out how we can maximize the average order value per backer. Once we
Yeah.
get that information, then we actually scale it and we maximize that reservation funnel based on that price that outperformed all the other tests. Does that make
Nice.
sense?
Yeah, total sense. And the reason why this question is so interesting is because I bet you also have seen such an amazing sometimes ideas in Kickstarter that the reason they fail is not because they didn't reach the goal, it's because they reached the goal, but they didn't know how to actually execute in terms of matching the price they promised to the consumer or how to even manufacture it. And that's why I think it is sometimes such an important thing you engineer from the very beginning. It's nice that you do that
And
because I feel like no point reaching the goal if you actually cannot deliver it.
and Vincenzo, so one other really important thing, um, a lot, to your point, like a lot of clients, like you asked me earlier, you're like, hey, Will, so what's the number one piece of advice you'd give
Yeah,
anyone with a new product that might be interested in crowdfunding on
yeah,
Kickstarter, on Indiegogo? And to be honest, and to be brutally honest, when I started LaunchBoom, I started as a white glove agency. We do it for you, and
mhm,
our clients needed on average 50,000 US dollars to work with my team, but would do it all for them. Half
mhm,
of that money would go into the video production, the marketing. The other half of that budget would go into advertising. And that's how we drive these massive, half million, $1 million plus campaign outcomes, right?
mhm.
The problem with that model is that we actually discovered a much more efficient, a much more cost friendly way to deliver the same type of outcome, but without having to take $50,000 worth of risk in the beginning. So over the years, we actually killed our agency last year. So Vincenzo, we were the biggest agency in the world, right?
Mm,
We're partners with Kickstarter, with Indiegogo.
yeah,
And as soon as I made the pivot last year, I get calls from the CEOs of
yeah,
Kickstarter, of Indiegogo, and they're freaking out. They're like, Will,
mm,
what are you doing, man? Why are you
mm,
making this pivot? Are we in trouble? Is crowdfunding in trouble? Talk to us.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, no, what we realize is that the agency model, it's too rich, especially for the underfunded bootstrappers out there. The people that
Which
are
is a
using such
community that actually drive crowdfunding. It's people that is bootstrapping it. Yeah, exactly.
exactly. And so I said, what we're doing is we're trying to get away from the expensive model, and we're trying to build a much more efficient, a much more fun, a less risky model so that we can still maximize the outcomes for all the campaigns. But instead of charging 50,000, we can do it for less than 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And so Vincenzo, what's so cool, I mean, it only took me 8 years to figure that model out, right? But,
a bit late.
it took us 8 years to figure out that the agency model is not the best model to support the product creator demand.
I know.
So we actually made this pivot to this coaching consulting model. And now we actually have our own community at LaunchBoom. So we're a community and platform of crowdfunding creators. Right now, we have over 1,200 active creators in our community that are going through crowdfunding currently. Now, that's everybody. That's some people in pre-launch. Those are some people who are live. And there's another segment of people that are manufacturing and delivering right now. But what's really cool is that today we're able to support so much more demand. So like, for example, when I was the biggest agency in the world a year ago, we might bring in 30 new clients a month, right? Which was awesome, right? I'm not complaining about that. But what's so much, I'd say so much more fulfilling for me is that with our new model, we're onboarding over 100 new clients a month. And we're helping so many more creators worldwide take their awesome ideas into market. And we're able to do it for a fraction of the cost versus what we were as an agency a year ago. So for me, like just the evolution of LaunchBoom has been fun. It's been invigorating, and it's working better than I could have ever imagined. And what I mean by that is that community that we built ourselves, that we host. We have daily coaching calls with all of the internal experts on my team here. And every day, no matter what part of the process our clients are in with crowdfunding, they can jump on a call, they can get their questions answered, they get that hand-holding that they need. But what we've done is we've upgraded our technology and software so that now our clients can have more fun, they can do more on their own, but they don't need to pay an expensive agency to do it for them, especially before they validated their ideas work, right? So we now have the best model in the industry that helps support so much more creativity out there. And for me, that's what's making my job, my life so rewarding right now, is the fact that we're launching hundreds of products right now. It's exciting.
Very nice, very nice. Awesome. So now I think our last question, so we can, conclude today's episode and get the most value out of, your brand. I know you have an amazing insights and experience when it comes to this. I think, so people can have a final tip regarding what are some of the big mistakes you see people doing all the time, or maybe if you can just quickly name them. What is something you will say, please, people, if you want to do crowdfunding, don't do this mistake that see a lot of people doing, and this is one of the number one things that is making this campaign not succeed. What would be that thing you are seeing based on your experience?
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, we have, like I said, over 100 new people joining our community every month right now, and they're coming from they're coming from everywhere, man. Right? So I'd say like half of my clients today are like the early stage, first time product launchers that come in. They're super green. They really don't know how to launch a product or even scale a business through e-commerce, right? And so when they come in, honestly, they're better off talking to my team first, because they're going to save a lot of headaches and they're going to save a lot of time and a lot of money. That's the best way I can answer your question. And the reason I say that is because it's true. And the reason it's true is because some of those green entrepreneurs, some of them will hire other agencies that aren't as experienced as my team. And they'll put dollars into expensive videos, and they'll put huge amounts of money into marketing assets they don't really need, right? And I hate to see wasted time and wasted money. So again, anyone who has a product idea that wants to go into Kickstarter or Indiegogo just to create more awareness, get that PR marketing, and to generate thousands of new adopters, right? They're going to be better served by talking to my team first, because even if they're not ready for crowdfunding, we can redirect them to some of our partners who can help them get that prototype or
Yeah.
help them get to a point where they are ready to launch on Kickstarter or Indiegogo and work with my team. So I'd say that. But the other half of my clients, believe it or not, are actually very successful e-commerce brands. So, and what's even more interesting is I've got a handful of Fortune 500 clients that are using my system to validate more product ideas faster in less time and less risk. And then they use crowdfunding to not only get that validation, but to generate more customers, right?
Yeah.
To create more brand exposure for those new product ideas. And so I would say any, experienced entrepreneur listening to this, or anyone who has an e-commerce business with consumer products, if they're looking to launch a new product brand or a new product in the future, you guys should be capitalizing on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, because they're great opportunities for you to take those ideas into these massive communities, pre-sell thousands of units before you have to make and deliver the product, right?
Nice.
And again, anyone who's out there interested in launching a new product, don't spend a bunch of money creating videos and marketing assets, because we've actually had a lot of success taking some projects with just photorealistic renders, Vincenzo.
Yeah.
And they spend like $1 or $2 creating some renders. And we actually use those renders as most of the assets we need to launch these Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns. So my biggest advice to anyone out there is talk to my team if you want to crowdfund, because we'll save you a lot of time, a lot of headache, and a lot of money.
Good. That's very good. And can you tell us where people can reach out to you, like your team and yourself, how people can get in contact? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say, like, anyone listening, if you guys want to learn more or talk to anyone on my team, you can go to launchboom.com. So if you go to launchboom.com, there's an apply button. You just click on it. You can put some basic information in there and actually talk to someone on my team. So you can learn more about, hey, does it make sense for you to take your product through Kickstarter or Indiegogo? And we can explain all the details involved.
Nice.
So I'd say go there. Now, there's another place you can go if you want to use and test out my software and technology for free.
Nice.
You can go to getlaunchkit.com.
Nice.
So getlaunchkit.com.
You gotta make sure to put it down in the description for everybody watching and listening, so you can find it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just submitted it to you in the private chat. Do you see that?
Yeah. Yes. So I'm gonna make sure everybody listening and watching the episode. So if we go to the episode description, you're gonna find those links in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So I'd say check out Get Launch Kit, because guys, you'll have access to our all of our technology, literally, and you'll be able to access it for free, just to get in there and learn more about the reservation funnel, how to develop them, and you'll see how easy it is to do that. And then if you want to learn more about having more of that hand-holding experience by having those syncs with our coaches on our team, I'd say definitely go to launchroom.com and talk to one of my experts, because you'll learn a ton even from the phone call, even if you don't end up launching on Kickstarter or Indiegogo.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's definitely been a pleasure here. I learned a lot from you, and I know this is gonna be the first of many episodes, because this is such an extensive topic. So looking forward to that. And yes, everybody that's listening and watching, make sure to reach out to Will if you're looking for crowdfunding. And in the meantime, thank you, Will, and have an amazing week. Yeah, let's keep in touch.
You too. Thanks so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming.